Sound Cartel.
What does employee disconnection have to do with customer reviews? This episode's guests say both can pose a threat to trust, but handled well, they can really supercharge business performance. In today's episode, Melinda McCormack joins me first up to explain the rising crisis of emotional disconnection at work. Then, serial entrepreneur and founder of Reputable, Karl Schwantes, reveals how businesses can transform customer reviews into lead generators without spending on ads. These two conversations are packed with modern leadership insight and low-cost growth strategies for business owners navigating an AI-driven world. From Sound Cartel, I'm Grace Jennings-Edquist, and this is Business Essentials. Our first guest is Melinda McCormack, founder of Impact with Empathy. Employee disengagement is often blamed on workload or culture, but what if the real issue is something deeper and less visible? Melinda McCormack joins us to explore why emotional disconnection is becoming a quiet crisis in leadership and how empathetic, human-first leadership can rebuild trust, alignment and performance. To get the interview started, senior producer Nicole Goodman asked why Melinda believes there's a disconnection crisis in business today.
Well, statistics are telling us that 82% of people are feeling emotionally disconnected, and 1 in 2 people are feeling undervalued. This is obviously in organizations. So for me, that means that there is a leadership crisis because people are checking out. So when we see what are some of those signs that a team or organization is suffering from, well, they're doing the job, but they're not feeling seen. There doesn't seem to be a clear purpose or clarity. There's low engagement scores. So organization who are more progressive may be measuring like psychological safety, for example. But what it's telling us is that people are afraid to speak up, and because they aren't trusting their leaders.
Are there any other signs that you can think of that highlight the disconnection that organisations are suffering from?
Well, one of the big ones is our mental health statistics. At the moment, mental health and claims for mental health in terms of insurance claims are the highest it's ever been. So this feeling of disconnection, lends itself to anxiety, stress, burnout. And really, it's about, the trust that employees are feeling with their leaders.
So how can leaders then begin to rebuild trust and alignment in disconnected environments?
Well, I talk about human first leadership. So we talk about, it's about compassion. It means leading with emotional clarity and strategic intent. So it's using both sides of the brain, the rational with the emotional, recognizing that people aren't resources to manage, but that they're humans to understand, inspire, and align. And I really look at 3 things for the shift to really start. We're moving from process to purpose. So we need to lead through meaning, not just procedure. And when people understand why their work matters, they unlock the energy that drives creativity and commitment. And we also want to move from control to connection. So replacing those rigid hierarchies with trust. So listening deeply, but co-creating decisions that builds shared ownership that no policy can really enforce. And perfection to progress. So the future is all about learning and learning with agility. So curiosity and humility has to replace the fear of being wrong.
Well, Melinda, your new book, Pulse, introduces a 5-step framework for turning disconnection into trust and impact. Can you give us an overview of what Pulse actually stands for?
Yeah, Pulse is my sort of groundbreaking, what I call groundbreaking framework or roadmap. And it's an acronym. So PULSE stands for P, and P stands for purpose. So really aligning to what really matters. And I talk a lot about there as well, aligning that to our values, because that's a really important step. And then when we talk about you, it's actually unlocking your, what I call emotional DNA. So everyone has their own unique code, emotional code, which is shaped by our experiences and our thoughts. So key in this step is really understanding our emotions and how we learn to master our emotions so that we're not always in the resistant behaviors. So I have developed a 25-step emotion map, and it goes through sort of the 5 stages of resistant to then more accepting behaviors. So this is a step that is, for me, fundamental. So it's that emotional awareness and that self-awareness that everyone needs. L is about actually how we learn using different emotional tools to help us with our new awareness around our emotions. How is it that we really learn to shift into those understanding adaptive behaviors that will help us cope with change or uncertainty? And so that is where we look at humility, vulnerability. And I've got a saying in this particular chapter around out of failure comes great learning. So that we're actually building that trust in ourselves, that it's not about being perfect, and it's about how we continually learn every day. And then S is all about shifting. So it's actually how we shift, and we know that it's the intentional actions and behaviors. So we actually start to rewire our neural pathways. So I'm getting into my neuroscience, but it really does prove a point that if you practice certain actions and behaviors, that will get you to the shifts that you actually want to make. And that creates the actual momentum. And E is actually about how you embrace that change. And when I talk about embracing that change, it's actually being agile emotionally. So it's actually about how you're able to balance what I call the heart that feels with the mind that leads. And this is where it all kind of comes together.
There's such important and pertinent ideas that you've managed to capture in one word. It really makes a lot of sense. Tell me, what's one pulse principle that leaders tend to overlook, but that's pretty crucial for sustainable change?
I think I mentioned it before. It's really that step around emotional awareness and self-awareness. We are rewarded and have been since we're young. It's all the technical mastery. And that's really what helps us progress in organizations and progress in life, right? It's what you know. But really, we don't spend the time to understand our emotional side. So what I call our emotional brain, and how we need to build that emotional fitness. So that whole around the actual letter U, it's about how we understand our emotional DNA so that we're mastering our emotions rather than reacting. So, we're actually responding from a place from calm, rather than reacting out of anger or frustration. And I think that's the biggest concept that leaders struggle with nowadays. So they think that, this emotional fitness is all about ticking a box again, but it's not. We don't tick boxes. It's all about reflection, and we've got to learn new skills and new practices that will help us build our emotional fitness. So I really talk a lot about that. So this book is really about helping you shape your new emotional fitness program.
And particularly important in a world of AI, which is becoming more and more prolific and slightly concerning.
Exactly. And that's what I was going to talk about further, but that's right. So AI is already replacing the technical components of a job. And that's why it's so important that we start looking at our human skills, our humanity. And really, that's all it's about, isn't it? Change. It's all about the people.
Yeah.
You
We're
know,
humans at the end of the day. Yeah.
exactly. We're humans. And it's not about the shifts in technology. It's about humanity and how we bring that back into the center of how we operate in life and work.
Well, the idea then that empathy is your edge challenges traditional leadership models. What inspired you to write the book with that core message?
Yeah, sadly, as in most, I guess, inspirations, it does come from a personal loss. And for me, that was the case. So when I always say the love of my life and partner passed away, it was my son. So he was only young. He was only 10 when he lost his father. And, I didn't know. I had all these fears. I thought, how am I going to do this? Am I going to be strong enough? And at 10 years of age, he never experienced anything bad in his life, right? Everything was happiness. And so how could I bring and strengthen his emotional framework so that he could cope with life's challenges? And so that really became my purpose. And so I basically turned to empathy. And most people think of empathy, oh yeah, you're nice. You're a nice person. You listen and you understand. But it's a lot more than that. I've now made that like a practice and a system. So it's actually showing up and providing an environment where, for example, my son could experiment and fail. And I linked that back to learning. So every time he made a mistake, I'd say, what did you learn from that? And interestingly enough, I was leading this program because I'm an organizational change specialist in one of the large corporates across thousands of people around new ways of working. And I had to give them a new purpose and a new identity as well, because all the roles were changing. So that's exactly what I did there at work, as I was doing with my son. And people don't realize how important empathy is, because for me, that's that bridge that helps you build the self-trust, the belief, and that psychological safety to really connect your rational brain with your emotional brain.
That was Melinda McCormack, founder of Impact with Empathy.
If you're building a business, your reputation is everything. And a podcast can help build trust at scale and turn your expertise into authority. Sound Cartel's new Thought Leader package is designed for business owners who want impact without the overwhelm. So we handle the strategy, production and launch while you can stay focused on what you do best. You can book your free 20-minute strategy call at soundcartel.com.au.
Now to online reviews and how to turn them into leads. Customer reviews are often seen as simple feedback, but what if they were actually your most powerful marketing asset? Serial entrepreneur Karl Schwantes joins me to explain how businesses can turn reviews into a steady stream of leads, build trust, and grow without relying on paid ads. Karl, who is managing director of Xennox Diamonds and founder of Reputable, says he's built a system where Google reviews generate consistent leads without paid ads. To kick the interview off, I asked Karl to walk us through the core principles of how that actually works.
I love the word remarkable. Now, I don't know where you're listening to this, but as a Brisbane boy, we have this thing once a year called the Ekka. It's the big grand show. And for me, you got these like show bags, which had a whole heap of junk in it. But when you're 7 years old, it seems really, really important. And my favorite show bag was always the magic show bag. There is an element of magic that comes when you create remarkable experiences. So the client is experiencing something and they leave your premises thinking that they've been part of something special, but they don't understand the little steps that have happened and the training with the team. So for example, like when I'm at Xennox, I've trained all of my team. If any one of the team hears the word, do you know what your finger size is? They immediately pick up the ring sizing kit and they will just bring it as if by magic to the salesperson's right shoulder. And from the client's perspective, it's as if this ring sizing kit just magically appeared. And how remarkable is that? It's like, that's where the magic and remarkable to me, it's kind of like a blend between the two, but it's that creates that sense of wonder that the client just has no idea how it happens, but they just are totally impressed that this is something beyond what they could have expected.
Karl, what are the subtle but impactful touch points that most businesses overlook that can dramatically elevate client trust?
Okay, so the industry average, depending on your industry, will say that most businesses need about 17 touch points for a client to be able to convert into a sale. The reality is when you start to go down the rabbit hole of focusing on improving your client journey experience, that can actually reduce to like 5 to 7. And they're all the little things. Like, for example, I spoke in a previous podcast with you about experience silos and looking at each individual part. One of the most forgotten experiences that most businesses leave out is, what does the leaving experience look like? No one really thinks about, well, how can I make the leaving experience be so remarkable that it's so easy for the client to return that they feel really welcomed? And for us, it's kind of like, I remember standing at a restaurant where they said, instead of like, wait here to be seated, it was like, wait here to be served. And it was like how you language everything that you do. So in those experience silos, I choreograph the language around it, and we want people to feel like they've come home. And it's like, welcome back. And it doesn't matter for us whether you've got $3,000 to spend or $100,000. It doesn't matter. We treat every client the same. And if Qantas ever wanted to tap me on the shoulder and say, could you come and help me? I would say to them, do what Singapore Airlines does, which means treat your economy class clients like your business class. You just treat everybody the same with humanity and looking to make it a remarkable experience for them.
When a business delivers an exceptional experience, how does that influence the kind of reviews they earn and ultimately their reputation online?
When a business goes above and beyond what a client thought was possible, there are many different mistakes that they make. Number one, sometimes they just don't ask. They think that the hard work that they do should speak for itself and that the client will leave a review unprompted. I can tell you now, it just doesn't happen that way. Clients would love to review your business. You just have to ask. So that's number one. The second mistake that they make is they don't understand the concept of the happiness window. They're doing the right thing, but potentially doing it at the wrong time. So you need to look at your client journey experience and find out, well, when is the perfect opportunity to ask for a client review? So one of my clients was and this sounds really quite morbid, but they're a pet crematorium. And one of the things that they found out was they worked with the vet. And 2 weeks after the pet had died, they sent like a little card with the paw print that they'd taken impression of to say, hey, we're thinking of you and we've done this. But it was 2 weeks after the event, not at the time the transaction happened. And then they got lots of reviews from that. So you need to look at your client experience and go, when is the happiest time to ask for a client experience?
Now, I want to talk about AI because AI has changed the way people can search for businesses online. So how do you show up as the most trusted business in this new world of AI search?
So it's really moved from like about 5 or 7 years ago, the common search term was plumbers near me. Okay, because Google knows that you want a plumber near you. Now the common phrase is business name and then the word reviews. If Bezos from Amazon is doing something, you should be paying attention. And what they realized was that people were going through a process of almost review fatigue. You know, there's 2,000 reviews. How do I know which one of the 2,000 are the right ones? But they brought out this like almost a shopping assistant called Rufus. And what Rufus does is it analyzes all of the reviews and it says, this product is great for this, this, and this. But a number of clients have complained about their return policy. And so where AI search is going now is that there's absolutely nowhere to hide. You might have great Google reviews, but bad Facebook. What the AI search will do now is it'll pull in absolutely everything. And the two main ones that most business owners are just completely neglecting is Reddit and Glassdoor. So they might say you've got a great product or service, but your employees are complaining about, it's a toxic culture. Now, as a client, I probably don't want to go there. So there are two elements that business owners that are listening to this podcast should really kind of be focusing on. How do I become the business of choice, but also the employer of choice? Because when you become the employer of choice, you not only attract key talent, but you actually have to pay them less because they want to work for your company.
All right, final question for you, Karl. What is one simple change any business can make this week to improve client trust and loyalty?
I will come at that from a slightly different angle. Like, number one is, of course, in your team meetings. Now, I don't know whether many businesses have weekly team meetings, but one of the recommendations I give to my clients is that talking about Google reviews should be an agenda item on your weekly meeting. Like, what do you want? Do you want to have 10 reviews this week, 10 this month, 10 this year, whatever that is? But if it's not on the agenda, if it's not in the frontal part of your team's mind, they're not going to be asking for it. So set an intention. Like, let's say we're just started now. This is the 4th of February. By December this year, Christmas, how many Google reviews do I want to have? Then break that down by quarter, break it down by week, break it down by individual team member, and then set that as a goal. And then allow your team, who are your front line, like they're the front line. They're the ones. So I love to empower my team with boundaries. So I say to my team at Xennox Diamonds, you can do anything that you want to surprise and delight a client up to the value of $100. So flowers, lunch, car park, whatever that is. Okay. The whole concept of surprise and delight will be for another podcast, but you allow the people at the front line to do whatever it takes to make sure that the client experience is as remarkable as possible.
That was Karl Schwantes, serial entrepreneur, managing director of Xennox Diamonds and founder of Reputable. Thanks for joining us for this week's episode. Follow Business Essentials podcast across social media and head to businessessentialspodcast.au for more. Business Essentials is a Sound Cartel podcast. Producers are Nick Schillberger, Nicole Goodman and myself. Technical production is by Pete Letts. I'm Grace Jennings-Edquist. Thanks for listening. We'll bring you more Business Essentials next week.
Sound Cartel.